Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, Election 2014, Democratic candidates for House District 33, Aiea, and Senate District 21, Kalaeloa to Makaha. Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff with Hawaii News Now, your host for tonight's show. These newcomer candidates for State House District 33, Aiea, Halawa, and Waimalu, have a unique opportunity because Representative Mark Takai is vacating the seat to run for U.S. Congress. Two of the three Democratic contenders will talk tonight about the issues facing the area and what makes them the best for the job. The third candidate, Sam Kong, told us he could not make it tonight due to work obligations. The winner of this primary election will have a Republican to face in the general. Robert C. Helsham Jr. is running unopposed in the Republican primary. Midway through tonight's show, we'll pivot to leeward Oahu to talk with the Democratic candidates for State Senate District 21, Kalaeloa to Makaha. We invite you to join our conversation tonight by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments. Tonight, the seating arrangement and the order of the questions was determined by random draw. Now to our candidates. Arnold Wong is the lobbyist for the Ironworkers Union Stabilization Fund. He has served on several boards and commissions. And Tracy Arakaki has been a member of the neighborhood board in Aiea for more than 15 years. He's a television producer and a former racing promoter. And our first question tonight goes to Arnold Wong. Do you mind if I call you Arnold?
No problem.
First, tell us, one thing about you that you want voters to know that's important to them.
Well, the first thing I would like to tell is thank this station and PBS for allowing me the opportunity to be here.
Our pleasure.
I just wanted to say, the one of major things that I want to tell the people of Aiea and Hawaii is that I'm here to serve the people, not for myself, but for the people and how to help them and get through any problems that they may have.
Okay. Tracy, your thoughts. What one thing do you think is important for the voters to know about you?
I've served our community for over 15 years, elected on our neighborhood board. As being a representative for our district, a lot of it has to do with community service. Not special interests, but being out there to work for our community. And I've volunteered for many organizations over the years, so as a representative, you're basically working for the community, and I will tirelessly work for our community of Aiea.
Okay, great. Arnold, talk a little bit about the 33rd District. What's it like? What are the people there? What kind of things are they going through? Walk me through it for a person who doesn't know the district well. Describe it for me.
Well, the interesting thing about the 33rd District, it's very diverse in the sense that we have Newtown, Royal Summit, all the way through Aiea Heights, Pro Ridge, and Halawa Heights. So the diversity of the population is immense. What you'll see is how we have working families, young working families, all the way to elderly retirees. Their issues are really diverse of what they need. For example, you have education, traffic for the young people who want to be home to spend time with their kids, to the elderly who have issues with what's going to happen to my pension or what's going to happen if some catastrophic illness happens to me, who's going to take care of me? So those are the things that we have to look at, and those are things that I talk to people about.
And Tracy, in terms of the housing mix there, it's mostly, there's townhomes and so on, but it's mostly single-family homes. You see lots of multi-generational homes and that kind of people living on top of each other, those kinds of issues. And how does that lead into political issues that you end up having to deal with?
Well, Aiea has grown from a plantation town. Now it's a bustling city, so we have all of the same type of concerns, crime, making sure we can take care of our small businesses, families, making sure we can take care of the multi-generational families. But our community is growing in a way it's going to be extremely important because we have the new rail system that's coming through. We have projects like the old Camp Drive-In that's being developed as a new urban hub. And then you also have concerns in outlying areas towards Newtown, Royal Summit, where there's a proposed zip line tour that wants to come in there, but the residents are adamantly opposed to it. So those type of issues are still up in the air. And other great things that happen in our community, due to some great advocates like Claire Tamamoto, we now have a new Aiea library, first one since 1964, which is going to meet the needs of our growing community.
Arnold, along those lines, so let's talk a little bit more specifically for the elderly population, the
Yes.
people you talked about. What kind of things do you advocate, will you advocate for that will help them?
I want to tell you the truth. One thing I've been talking to a lot of families, and even the caregivers at those houses, is they're having a hard time making ends meet. So I would advocate for some sort of tax credit for them, for elderly dependents, like how we have tax credits for children. Looking at tax credits to help these families get and help their families along. The other thing I would look at is if they have to put their, heaven forbid, their elderly parents in care homes, how to help them, because the cost of just a care home every month, it hurts. I mean, I had my family working on my grandparents in the care home, and that cost us a lot of money.
Tracy, your own thoughts on that particular issue about taking care of the elderly? What things will you advocate for in the legislature?
Well, firsthand, we're a multi-generational family. We've grown up in Aiea. Our family's been there since 1960, almost 55 years. And I had to take care of my grandmother who had Alzheimer's. So I know the needs of senior organizations that are within our community. My parents are seniors. One of the main things that always comes up in our legislature is that whenever they have a budget shortfall, they want to try to go ahead and tax our seniors' pensions. That type of things I would not stand for, because our seniors, our parents have worked really hard all their lives. They already paid taxes on their incomes and their retirements already once. I would not support taxing them again another time as well.
Arnold, you mentioned the same sort of thing, but I mean, really, what is the long-term fix for this sort of thing? The cost of living is so high. You have many people on fixed incomes, I would imagine, in your district. What kind of things do you think might actually bring down costs for folks who live in your district and the state?
Well, one thing we have to look at is having government work smarter. I mean, looking at government right now, it's cut to the bare bones, as we could see during this last economic crisis, but not create new programs until we take care of the old problems we have. The other things we should look at is looking at how to backfill in terms of the mats and container lines coming to Hawaii. Because right now there's nothing going back to the mainland. So that's a added cost to our consumers. So how to backfill something such as diversified agricultural crops or some other businesses to backfill and lower that cost of bringing things in from the mainland.
Do you agree that right now government is pretty much bare bones, that there isn't money to do some of these things?
No, I don't really think that our government is bare bones right now. I think a lot of times we have too much duplication in government, agencies out there that are not streamlined enough. And there's kind of a disconnect, especially with our senior community, where they feel that the government is not actually listening to them. And it kind of shows this past legislative session where they thought we had a surplus, and then they had to come back several times to make readjustments, and every single time, the council revenue came back and the prediction was actually much lower. So to say that we're at the bare bones right now, I don't think that that's the case.
So where would you take the surplus? What would you do with that?
There's a lot of things to address. The homeless situation. For us right now, we need to try and work to make more affordable housing, because that's a lot of the major problem. A lot of us are just basically 2 paychecks away from being homeless ourselves. Or having been in news for so long as a news cameraman, I've seen and we've done many stories of how people had a health situation happen, heart attack, stroke, and they were the only breadwinner in the family, and then all of a sudden they couldn't make ends meet and they're the homeless themselves. So that to me is an important issue that we should try and tackle as well.
Any response to that? I mean, in the sense of, do you think that there is money available, and how would you use it if you had it?
If there is a surplus, I'm going to tell you the truth, one of the major things, the problem we have with the state is the balance with the EUTF and that big balance that we have unexpended.
That's the employee health fund for the state of Hawaii and
because
county employees.
Because it's so huge right now, it's in the billions, and just putting $100 million aside every year from a surplus will not bring it down. It's like having millions in you owe so much and you're just paying the interest and not the principal. So what happens is economically, we will go into major debt crisis because of that. So I figure that one of the major things we have to do on the bonds is to ensure that we take care of those issues.
So you actually think that there's hidden deficits in government that aren't being taken care
I
of?
totally agree in that.
Tracy, you feel, that he sounds like he's got a pretty sophisticated view of the big financial picture, but are you concerned about it's not just the funded liability in the health fund, as I understand, but also the pension fund is an even bigger issue. So let's talk a little bit about how to save money in government. Do you feel that overall there's money being wasted in government on perhaps benefits for employees that are too generous? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, a lot of times, a lot of promises were made over the past administrations to try and satisfy taking care of our government employees. And because of those promises that were made, we just don't have that accountability today to try and make sure that we have the funds that they had before that when all these promises were made. So I'm not that up into that situation right now, but the further you get into working at the legislature, I would become more aware of these situations.
Would you generally feel that the government's been too generous with public employees?
A promise is a promise. They need to keep their promises. And where they're going to be able to find the funds to go ahead and keep these promises. Like I said, there's just too much, government accountability that needs to be done, a lot of duplication of services, and that needs to be looked at as well, too.
I don't mean to stereotype, but when I asked that question, it occurred to me there's probably a lot of retired government workers in your district. Is that a fair thing to say?
I think it's a fair thing to say, because when walking door to door, you talk to these people and the retirees, and they says, "Oh, I am a government retiree," and they said one of the major thing, as Tracy said, is don't hurt us by taxing our pension. Protect our pension, protect us from getting hurt, because they took jobs that are lower paid in the promise that they'll be taken care of in the future. So that's what they did.
We've been getting a number of questions now, and I'm really glad to see this from our viewers, given that most of them are not in your district, but they're taking an interest in what you have to say, which is great. I've got a couple questions here that are about taxes and because I think people are thinking, well, these guys are going to go in. If they're going to vote to raise my taxes or lower my taxes. The question from Kevin via email is, how will you balance the state budget since taxing the big businesses would only hurt the wage earners? Tracy, you want to take that one first? The question is, I think the question is, how do you make decisions about that? Would you increase taxes on big business, for example, if you needed more money?
Well, private sector and businesses are what drives our economic engine. They're responsible for the majority of jobs out there. So, even on a small business level, if you go ahead and raise, things like GET, it makes it harder for them to go ahead and hire employees, because now they have to go ahead and try and make adjustments to make sure that they can, meet the accountability that the government's asking them for their taxes. One thing that I would not advocate is raising our GET, because that's going to basically put the backs of the majority who's going to be able to be responsible for making it. Like you talk about the seniors, they're on fixed incomes. You raise their GET, that's now going to end up affecting them on how they can go ahead and buy groceries, pay for their medications, or even other people who are struggling economically wise. They may not be far off, well off actually, but then when they go ahead and fill in gas every time, buy groceries, they're going to get affected and hit in the pocketbook as well.
Arnold, your own thoughts. If you had to tax somebody, would you prefer to tax business than individuals?
I'm going to tell you the truth, I wouldn't want to tax anyone. I wouldn't want to start any new taxes, just because, as we said, there is a surplus right now. So why would you want to put new taxes and burdens them on people and the businesses? So let's try and work it out that we live within our means.
One of the big issues coming to your district, and I think, Tracy, you mentioned it earlier tonight, is that you've got the rail coming through. Now, it's, from what I understand from the description of the district, it's actually not in the district. It's more down on the flat side along Pearl Harbor, for the most part, the rail. But it will certainly affect the folks' traffic, the folks, who live upland from this. But tell me what your concerns are. Arnold, I'll start with you, about the rail coming through. What are you guys seeing? What are you hearing from your constituents about, 3 big rail stations, potentially 3 big developments building up around those rail stations?
Well, one of the major things that we do see about the rail is hoping that the state and the city work together to make a multimodal transportation plan. not just using the rail, but also using the bus system, looking at carpools, and also bike lanes to work on helping the people and reducing traffic. Also looking at transit-oriented development, but making sure that it's for affordable housing for the people, for our people, not for mainland people who are just coming here as snowbirds. So that's one of the main things. And also looking at maybe putting also adult daycare and also healthcare issues around the station so our elderly can live around a station, then they can catch it without walking so far or catching the bus to hit those stations.
Tracy, I think that what Arnold is saying probably is shared by most folks, that when you have transit-oriented development, you want this variety of uses to come in. But how do you make sure that that happens? How do you feel about that in terms of what you've heard so far? Do you feel that the government, the county and the state have been sensitive to those concerns that are being expressed in your district about this?
Yeah, right now, I think that's kind of getting more ahead of what the situation is right now presently, because we hear before our neighborhood board that there's not enough coordination because you've got construction going on Mauna Loa, Cam Highway, and the freeway as well. So people are getting stuck no matter where they turn. And I myself am getting stuck in this all the time as well. So I'm in the same boat as everybody else. It seems that there's so much construction going on, but not enough coordination as to where and why it's happening or what would be alternate routes to be taken, because frankly, there's just not enough communication between all the parties right now at this point.
And that doesn't give you much confidence about their ability to handle big development coming down?
Most definitely, because this is just the beginning of the project. You know, we still haven't even gotten into the meat of it yet. You know, we haven't even started putting the pillars down Cam Highway yet. Mm-hmm. And so when it gets to that point, then we're going to really see how bad it could possibly get as far as our traffic concerns are.
Arnold, any response to that? Now, I need to point out once again, as we did in the introduction, you represent the steel workers, iron workers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So is that one of the unions that was very supportive of rail all along? And how do you feel about that? You know, you're trying to represent a district that might resent what's going on. Do you feel of two minds about it, or?
Well, in reality, no, because the first thing is I work for the Stabilization Fund, which is a consortium of the small businesses, and the union. So it works together hand in hand to push and coordinate and communicate what ironworkers and the construction industry trade is about. And what occurs is we're working there for the local people. Now, in terms of, I don't think it's an opposition to what people want. It's working hand in hand together to say, yes, we do need construction, but for local people, and also how to build affordable housing for the people who are building these rail stations. Because as we can see right now, the news already stated that affordable housing is going to be at a minimum, and there is going to be a need for affordable housing.
How do you get developers who operate on the free enterprise system to do that, to actually sacrifice profit for what you're talking about?
Well, if you look at right now, the city already states that you have to put 30% affordable housing on any project. But the other thing you have to look at is giving more incentives. For example, 501 South King Street or South Street is doing just affordable housing in Kakako instead of the Howard Hughes project, which is mostly luxury. How do people like Marshall Hung and say, you know what, we need more affordable housing for the local people?
And then, Tracy, what do you think? How firm and how would you leverage the power of the government, for example, to make sure that these needs of the district, needs of the local people are met with this project? I mean, what would you do as a legislator, say, to force more affordable housing or more elderly care, that sort of thing, into these projects?
It's a combination of incentives which are out there from both the state and federal level, but to also make sure that these developers keep their promises. Because a lot of times when they end up saying that they're going to go ahead and provide these services in exchange for tax credits, oftentimes they don't follow through, because it'll be like a 5-year plan, but 10 years down the road, or a 10-year total, another 5 years, you know, they've completely forgotten about their promises because no one's really keeping them with the checks and balances. So it's kind of one of those things where, yes, we need the more housing, affordable housing from them, but what can they give us back in return?
Are you saying that, I mean, if these guys don't meet their promises, shouldn't someone hold them accountable? And who should be holding them accountable if they're not doing that now?
Yeah, most definitely, because I'll give you an example. Like right now for the Camp Drive-In project, they have that live, work, play, Aiea development that's coming up. And part of the promises that the developer is making, that the shops that'll be now within that new facility, that they have to provide, if they have X amount of employees, they have to go ahead and provide bus passes for these employees, right? But that's over a 10-year period. Who's going to keep them accountable to making sure they're actually going ahead and following through with this? A lot of times we've seen a lot of projects come through our district over the years, and follow-throughs have not been completed.
Arnold, what do you think about that? I mean, who do you think should hold these folks accountable, and how do you as a legislator ultimately hold the people who are supposed to hold them accountable?
I guess the couple things. First is the live, work, play is done through the city. So the city is held responsible for following through that issue. But also to put it with almost like a land lease, in a sense, that if they don't pay, you somehow get a bond or something that they'll pay back to the city through some sort of escrow account. So looking at those type of things, that they're held responsible through a bond or escrow, and if they don't do these things that they promise within those period of time, it goes straight to the government.
Do you agree that a lot of these promises have been broken?
I think that some of these promises have been broken, but our government now is trying to work their best to ensure that these promises are taken care of.
Okay, let me go a little negative here, just for the sake of this conversation. Is that you guys are running? Everyone runs saying, "I'm going to make things better." Okay, what do you say, Tracy? I'll start with you. Is the biggest problem in government now that's hurting people in your district, and what would you do about it?
For me right now, the biggest concern would most definitely be the rail project. The rail needs to have more communication with our district in regards to the construction that's ongoing, because the main thing right now is the traffic flow through the district. Businesses are getting hurt by it because people are having a hard time actually getting to their businesses. Also, concerns like the zipline tours that's coming up there in Newtown that's being proposed, and the community residents do not want it, but still yet they're given the opportunity to continue to proceed with the project.
Arnold, on that point, I'll ask the same question again. What would you think is the biggest government problem or failure that's affecting the folks in your district?
I'm going to tell you the truth. While walking my district, I met this gentleman, and he said, "Arnold, can you help me try and get a light post in front of my house because it's very dark?" So I've been trying my darndest, just going through the bureaucracy, to say, go. I went to one department, then to another, to another, to another, and they kicked me back to the first department. And this is an elderly gentleman who's a retiree. And you're a professional lobbyist.
Well,
you know exactly.
How to do this. Yeah.
And I'm saying, if I myself can't do it, and a common person is trying to do it, what's going to happen, in the future? They should have something to say, this is where it stops. And I'm going to do my darndest to say, I'm going to be the person to try and say, the buck stops here, and I'll work the hardest for the people.
So are you saying the government, even down at the basic service level, just doesn't listen or pay attention to what people need?
I think it's more that everyone is passing the buck. They're saying, no, it's not my kuleana, it's someone else's. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I want to stop that, and I want to say, I'm going to stop it and say, I want to try and take care of it for them. Because if it's a gentleman saying, my trash hasn't been picked up, or something else, I want to ensure that they're taken care of.
Tracy, on that point, I mean, do you agree that this government not being in touch is a big issue? And if you do, I'm curious as to what you think. Arnold mentions, the buck stops with me, but I've heard of many legislators have a hard time getting bureaucracies to move. I mean, what do you think is the problem with people not being able to get government to respond to them?
A lot of times I think it's taking responsibility instead of just passing it from department to department. A good example is like right now in our district and throughout the area, because we have a lot of wide roads through our community, speeding is a major problem. Just right down the bottom of my street, there was a speeding incident, and the speeder ended up wrecking the person's stone wall. And so being able to have your ears open and your doors open is very important. So what I did is, because speeding is a major problem, I contacted the Honolulu Police Department, because the past representative used to have the CTAP program, that traffic awareness program, and it hasn't been done in a while. So I'm trying to restart that program with the help of Honolulu Police Department. It's just one of those things of trying to get proactive with your community to recognize a problem and go ahead and find out how you can get a solution to get it solved.
Arnold, do you think that that's the biggest fear that the residents of Aiea have, that the quality of life, the kind of life they're used to, is in some sort of jeopardy from all this change?
I think, as human beings, we're adaptable. I'm going to tell you the truth. I mean, everyone adapts, but it's how fast to adapt. And the changes, we're going to change no matter what. As Tracy said in the beginning, Aiea has been changing from a small, quiet plantation town to a bustling city. What we have to do is ensure that we respect the past, but look at the future and how to ensure that everyone has a say and is protected.
Do you want to respond to that question about, do you think people are just afraid of change, or afraid that the quality of life is deteriorating there?
Whenever change, it always comes in uncertainties. So it's one of those things where you need to kind of maybe walk the community hand by hand to let them know what's going to be happening, and just communicating more to let people know that it's going to be all right, but if you have concerns, please let us know so we can address the problem and maybe, make it happen in a better way or a better light. But it's one of those things where communication is going to be extremely important with the community and tirelessly working for the community.
It sounds like what you're saying is to change government accountability is to be accountable yourselves.
Correct.
I totally agree.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen, very much. It's been very interesting. I learned a lot about Aiea. It's one of my favorite parts of town. I go there often, and I really want to thank you guys for having a great conversation with us tonight. We're going to now move on to the next section. Coming up, we'll have the two Democratic primary candidates running for the Leeward Coast's Senate District 21. They'll talk about the issues facing their community and how they stand on statewide challenges as well. Right now, please enjoy this message about how Hikino, the nation's first statewide student news network, is becoming sustainable for future generations.
We wanted to make an effective and measurable difference in advancing education.
We ought to teach kids how to do news, how to do stories. Hikino as a program has grown tremendously since its inception.
Digital technologies aren't just fun and games. They're the new literacy, and combined with 21st century skills such as collaboration and oral and written communications, critical thinking, this creates a better workforce.
When students work in a Hikino environment, they build these skills.
But Hikino has to be integrated into the school curriculum for it to have a future.
The Stupski Family Fund of the Hawai'i Community Foundation will make it possible for us to develop a curriculum that will allow the DOE to embed Hikino as an elective.
With this new literacy, I think Hawaii can be leading the nation.
If you set the standards high for the kids, they'll meet them.
Every Thursday night on Hikino, which precedes Insights, you can see the stories told by Hawaii students about the communities in which they live. Welcome back to Insights on PBS Hawaii. Homelessness, Hawaiian sovereignty, and economic development stand tall among the issues facing the Leeward Coast. In just 2 weeks, voters will be deciding which candidate will move into the general election against the winner of the Republican primary. As always, we encourage you to join our conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments. Now to our guests. Michael Kahikina is a former State House member representing Honokaihale and the Nanakuli communities. Prior to that, he was a member of the Neighborhood Board. He's an ordained minister who is currently serving the remaining year of his term on the Hawaiian Homelands Commission. Maile Shimabukuro is the incumbent senator who's been representing the district since 2010. Prior to that, she was a member of the State House representing Waianae, Makua, and Makaha. She is also an attorney for a nonprofit legal firm. And we go to you with the first question. Please, first tell me, what is the current state of the district? I mean, it's a huge district. It goes all the way from sort of the rich, some of the biggest, most expensive houses in town at Ko'olina, down to homeless shelters and homelands. And what's the condition now of the coast?
Well, you know, we have a lot of shelters. And I'm very happy that, you know, the administration responded to the need for all the shelters because there were so many homeless living on our beaches. And so now, there is a transitional shelter just like IHS, Pai'olu Kaia'ulu, and it's open 24 hours just like that. And a lot of people are able to go there and then transition out into some of the shelters that are at Kalaeloa and on the Waianae coast. And so I think there's more hope, out there, because I think that, there's a sense that government has responded to that crisis. Of course, there are still homeless at the boat harbor, places like that. But the community, it remains a very, very close-knit and caring community. That's why I love being from Waianae. It's isolated. There's only one way in and one way out, and so everyone knows everyone. People don't pass through Waianae. You know people for generations.
You go for a reason.
Yeah, and so it's wonderful. Got the highest concentration of Hawaiians in the world, so the Hawaiian culture is very much alive and well. I just came from a wonderful camp at Makua where it was training on how to make your own, poi board and poi pounder, and that's the kind of cultural, revival that's happening that I think is wonderful to see.
Sure, Mike, give me your capsule of what you think is people on the coast are most concerned about these days.
Well, we still got the homeless situation there, and as the senator was alluding to, planning more work, and as you were saying, we're the highest concentration of the Hawaiian homes communities, which is lifelong communities, which is part of the responsibility of the state from the Congress, from the United States Congress. And for myself, I'm a third generation on that land. A lot of the homeless do come from our land. Mm-hmm. And as you can see in the newspaper recently, all the news on the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and as a sitting commissioner and also a former legislator that passed legislation to try to move the Hawaiian homelands back to the Hawaiian people, to revive all of those things that we're talking about: education, economy. Mm-hmm. The economy is down. Our people need living wages.
Is that really we talk so much about homelessness, and every time anybody talks about Waianae, you hear about homelessness. It looks a lot better out there than it did in the past, but is homelessness the main issue for the people who live in Waianae, or is, as you're saying, more about having adequate jobs, having adequate employment? Well,
maybe the public and Santa need to go walk down the beach and go where the caves are. They're just hiding now more, The homeless are still there. But the sad thing is that the homeless is our families. You go into the shelters, they're not the families, that long-term families that live there. Hawaiian homes were created in 1920, amended 21. We moved there in 1953. So families are there generations after generations. Now you got land that have been taken out of the inventory, because that's the 600 million settlement. Mm-hmm. Right. Was for lands that was taken, not for saying that, that's it, because going forward, the states still have that judicial or statutory responsibility to manage and dispose of the Hawaiian population.
Okay, Senator, same question to you. Is the homeless issue the primary issue for the folks in your district, or is it more along the typical lines of many places, the economy, jobs, and so on? Yeah,
well, I think a big issue is traffic. That's always been an issue that, because for so many people on the Waianae coast, they work outside the district. So that remains a huge issue. And, I was able to get funding in the budget for turn lanes at Nanakuli and Haleakala Avenues, both in Nanakuli, where really that's the bottleneck is. And so hopefully, DOT said that project is underway, and it's going to be quite extensive. They're really it's going to be a 21-car pocket on one of the avenues and like 18 cars on the other avenue. So it'll hopefully really help to alleviate that source of daily stress for people. Definitely education is another big one. Our schools continue to be, so-called at the bottom of the ranking.
Why don't we'll break up these issues a little bit as we go on. We've got half an hour. We'll go back. We'll get to that. That's fine.
Great.
But Mike, on the issue of traffic, East Honolulu got its really nice new Kalaeloa Highway widened, and the windward side they got H3, and Nanakuli still has 2 lanes either way.
Right,
And,
right.
you know, do you get a sense that the district has not gotten its fair share over the years?
Well, okay, though you're talking about a Native Hawaiian district, you know, Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and the Native Hawaiians are moving to try to develop their land with a development there called Nanakuli Village Center for years. We've developed our own affordable housing project. We got Kamehameha Schools to come and partner in with us to build a learning center there, a great community center. We have Longs as an anchor tenant. So now people talk about traffic, trying to stop the development, stopping our opportunity to create jobs and opportunities for our people. But you get good traffic and you get bad traffic, see? The good traffic is the one that bring in the business, new money, and flourish so that you create jobs. The bad traffic is when our families who work hard and want to get home because they want a quality of life. So how do we work with the community and don't just let bureaucracy come in and develop our paradise? You got to get everybody involved.
Okay, that's a good point to move on to this next question. From a viewer via Twitter, question for Shimabukuro and Kahikina: what makes you different from your opponent? I might give you the first shot at that. What makes you different? What'll make you more effective, say, than Senator Shimabukuro has been?
Well, I'm born and raised on Hawaiian homeland. I'm third generation on that land. I got a compassion and understanding of the Hawaiian Home Commission Act. My grandparents had never had a choice to melt in this melting pot. Everybody else that came to Hawaii, in fact, even the American history, all the natives, Native American, Alaskan, or besides the African Americans, they never had a choice. They came as slaves. The rest all came to this great nation to melt in this pot for opportunities. And I'm for equality. And that's what is different, is that we're a Native Hawaiian community getting shoved out, not being recognized.
Let me ask though. The question is: so how does that history, your background and your culture, how is that going to help you do what the district needs as a legislator, as opposed to, say, now Senator Shimabukuro also has deep roots in her community. Yes,
because equality is what everybody's. The special session was about equality. The Native Hawaiians have been waiting for equality for a very long time. The issues now that is going on with the Department of Interior and the frustration of the Native people, I hope the public is recognizing that, because I feel that the public is. And the public is not educated enough to feel the sensation or what Native Hawaiian feeling for what had happened to our queen.
Okay, and Maile, let me ask, do you feel like you have a skill set that has been effective for your district?
Yes, you know, for over about 2 decades now, aging myself, I've worked in public interest law, first as a paralegal and then as an attorney for the past 14 years. And I really think that experience has been very valuable because, you know, I get exposed to the issues and the laws that need to be changed. And I really think the best way to judge a society is how the most vulnerable are faring, you know. And for example, you know, one of the first bills I got through when I first got elected was a bill that, you know, if you're trying to get disability benefits from the state of Hawaii, in the past, you could only claim a physical or a mental disability. You couldn't claim both. And it was very frustrating representing people because, you know, you'd find that, you know, someone suffers from, you know, back pain, but they also have depression that severely impairs them, but the hearing officer wouldn't hear that. And so I was able to get a bill through that, you know, says you have to consider the whole person. And that made a huge difference in so many people's lives, you know. And so, you know, I really think that that's the kind of, you know, legislation that's so critical. You know, for many of us, what happens at the Capitol doesn't have a huge impact in our lives, but for those that are the most vulnerable, it can impact whether or not they can pay the rent next month, you know.
What is the resistance? Do you sense resistance at the Capitol fully funding the issues on the Waianae Coast? Do you get people saying, "Well, there's all these Hawaiian programs, you know, oh, the Hawaiian homes, they'll take care of it." Do you get that, or do you? What is the issue that the schools are busted up out there? I know there's a lot of great stuff going on in the schools, but you know, it does. There's a feeling out there that they're not getting fair treatment.
Oh yes, definitely. You know, and it has been it's very difficult. You know, when you represent a rural district and a district that's largely Hawaiian, you're going to be a minority, you know, at the capital, you know. But I do see positive things that are happening. You know, one of the big problems with our schools is the lack of teachers. The teacher turnover has been very bad. But, you know, I was able to get some money in the budget to buy LCC Waianae a home, a permanent home. So they're actually going to move to this Taikon building in Maile, which is much bigger. They can expand.
LCC is Leeward
Community College Waianae. And then UH West Oahu, you know, did get built through a hui of us legislators that asked for funding for that. So I think that's going to help to create more homegrown teachers because more can get access. Instead of having to go to Manoa, they can get the education close to home and then stay in Waianae. So I think that I see things happening. And then when the governor had his laptop initiative, Waianae was picked for that. So I think that the fact that, you know, we've been in the headlines so much for having, you know, our schools suffering so much has gotten attention of some of the lawmakers and some of the leaders. So, you know, I think there are some positive change being made, you know, but it is frustrating, it's difficult.
Mike, any response to that, and particularly on schools?
Yeah, as positive as the senator reports that the legislation, you know, you gotta provide deeds to, you know, with my 12 years of experience in the House and the type of legislation and funding that I got from my district, maybe the working experience as far as the legislature, you know, I know I have it and I can do the work there at the legislature. But I was emphasizing more of the work within the community. The education, for instance, because rhetoric without deeds are really just rhetoric. Now let's talk about the deeds because we created a teacher certification program all the way up to PhD in partnership with the former principal, Marian Bramajit, Dr. Margie Ma'aka from the University of Manoa. We have graduated and certified our teachers. In fact, they do the class right in the classroom where it needed to be. We have never gotten any support from legislature. In fact, right now we got people that trying to ambush our project, saying that they coming out to Nanakuli and working with our community when I don't even know them.
It's an interesting point he's bringing up. I mean, is there a sense that there's a lot of folks from outside coming in telling the people who live there how to take care of things when in fact maybe they can take care of things themselves?
Well, you know, I know that because of the high teacher turnover, we had to use Teach for America and bring in a lot of teachers that are not from Hawaii even. And that's been difficult. I mean, those teachers are excellent. You know, many of them end up staying on the Waianae Coast. But, you know, there is a frustration, you know, that, you know, we have to do that. And so, you know, I'm happy to report that, you know, my son goes to Kawaihona, charter school, Kawaihona Okana'awao, and there's a lot of homegrown teachers there. The principal, Alvin Parker, is doing an amazing job at, you know, attracting and recruiting teachers that are from the community, longtime residents. And so it can be done, you know, and Ho'okula'iwi, you know, the effort that Mike Kahikina just talked about is an excellent effort that, you know, I know is housed within the UH, and that they do have, you know, seen some success in producing some graduates.
Let me get a question now from our audience, which we always appreciate, and it asks, and Mike, you did touch on this a little bit, the idea we've got to generate jobs out there. You said, what are the plans for Waianae's economy and jobs? Senator, how do you attract folks, investment out there that the community will welcome?
Well, there are some exciting things happening. You know, I have some close ties to Ma Organic Farm, you know, for instance, and they've been fantastic in terms of, you know, training youth, and they have these organic produce where it's in such high demand that actually the demand exceeds the supply. And so they're looking to expand, and they're looking, you know, for ways that they can, you know, create more farms and expand for a lot of the interns that get so jazzed about organic farming that they want to do more. And so I definitely see that as an area of potential growth. You know, if there's people out there that want to support, you know, this type of organic farm, they're great. And David Wong, you know, in Waianae has his natural farming under Master Cho, that's also been very successful.
On that point, let me ask, Mike, what do you see as agricultural potential for that coast? Do you see that as a real place where good jobs can be done?
Daryl, I know that wherever there's a will, there's a way. You know, and agriculture has always been in our district. In Waianae Valley, you know, we got an agriculture park over there. It's supposed to be a diversified agriculture park. You know, it's not diversified. You only can grow certain kind of stuff. I mean, that's what the state. I really believe that the state and the government has gone way over the line in regulating our public. It seems like almost like government is an enemy of the public. The public cannot even make a living. If we cannot take care of the very vulnerable of our community, what kind of community do we have? And what kind of government is representing our people? I was never for the mass road transit, but it's there. Now we want to figure. We're thinking of how can we get that opportunity that would work for us. And we've been talking about this two bookcase idea of bringing tourists within our community, utilizing the historic railways society, because they're at the west end of Di Bartolo, and on the other end is the mass transit.
Well, your own thought about that? I mean, that's been an intriguing idea. We see the tracks by Tracks Beach and so on. And do you see an opportunity there to bring rail up the coast, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, at this point, I know that that's not part of Hart's plan. I'm pretty sure that's just going to be Kapolei onward. And so, you know, I'm a regular bus rider, you know, and so I definitely wouldn't take the rail. I mean, it doesn't really make sense if you're from Waianae. But if it's going to take more people off the road, I think that can be a great thing, because then it'll help the commuters, you know, everyone in cars and in buses.
You don't think, though, that the district is too in love with its cars?
I think that's a problem statewide, you know, but you know, with the cost of gas keep going up, and you know how horrible it is to sit in your car, you know, that's why I switched to the bus myself.
How long does it take you to get into the capital from the bus? On the bus?
It's about an hour and a half once you get on the bus, but actually it's about the same if you're driving. Actually, sometimes it's worse because you don't have the zipper lane if you're not, you know, in the high volume lane.
Mike, you brought the transportation issue up. How much do you think that's holding back the district? The fact that it's just isolated, hard to get to. Sometimes there's traffic jams that stick you up for a long time.
Yes, and then as we identified that we got all the homeless, the Native Hawaiians that failing our school, Nanakuli High School, number last, 65% of our teachers with less than 3 years of experience, and as they get tenured, they're out of there. So all of that is impacting all of that. So now, if we're as strong as our weakest link, how you think a homeless gonna get to work?
Yeah.
Huh? And how you think most of them with families get on pickup truck? Now we put another law to penalize them because people getting killed driving reckless on a truck.
Yeah.
I mean, all that ties in.
Okay. Yeah. Now let's go here now with this issue, the sovereignty issue. We've gotten a couple of calls in here. There's been a lot of very, very heated rhetoric since the Department of Interior came in and started bringing up this issue of federal recognition. Maile, let me start with you. Where do you see this going? And in particular, what's your position on how this should be handled?
Well, I think one thing that people on both sides, I would think, can agree on is that we need to at least protect the existing Hawaiian benefits from constitutional attacks, because that's what's been happening. You know, Rice versus Cayetano, and then the Arakaki case, and all these attacks are because Hawaiians aren't recognized as a race that's entitled to reparations, yet they're considered a race like any other, and that's why you can sue on constitutional racial discrimination basis. So I think that everyone pretty much would agree. So I would love to see a recognition purely of that, just the fact that, you know, there was an illegal overthrow, Hawaiians are entitled to reparations, so let's exempt them from any kind of constitutional challenge for their benefits. and protect those benefits from any kind of legal challenge.
How do you respond to people who then say that's just the crumbs? That's just the crumbs to keep us happy.
Yeah.
And you know what we really want is the kingdom.
Yeah, well, and that's why, you know, I think that it's great that DOI did come out and was able to hear, you know, how angry, you know, the Hawaiians are about what was done, you know, and how the overthrow was happened to them. You know, and I hope that you know, that message, you know, can go back to leaders on the federal level, and that they can take a serious look, you know, at how we can, you know, truly allow Hawaiians to have more control, you know, over themselves. You know, and I know one of the goals is that, at minimum, the lands that are in Hawaiian possession now, you know, that lands Oha has, Kaho'olawe, you know, Ford Island, those types of lands, that the Hawaiians, once they have their nation, that their laws would apply to that, instead of state government applying it to fish ponds, you know, some of the traditional land use areas that are really stymied by, you know, American law, that we would no longer have jurisdiction over that. That would then become Hawaiian.
Okay, Mike, your own feelings about this.
Well, you know, we have the opportunity to do that. We have done it. We had the opportunity all along with the Federal Act called the Hawaiian Home Commission Act, 1920, amended in 1921. To me, that was the first apology to the Native Hawaiians. But our prince does not make it home in 1922 to fulfill it. And as you can see, the Department of Interior was asked to come because the state is failing their responsibility to manage and dispose of the Hawaiian Home Commission Act. It is a rehabilitation act. And to rehabilitate Hawaiians, you have to take them back to fish and poi. And if you take them back to fish and poi, that fresh water, the wai, gotta touch the kai. And we got so much laws that divert the water and divert the culture. We're talking something that is bigger and with not only cultural and environmental, but economic impact.
I understand what you're saying, but I think what I'm trying to ask is, you know, okay, as a legislator, as a leader in these communities, you're in a place where people are going to look to you and say, what do we do? And so when it comes to this issue of sovereignty and federal recognition, you know, what do you tell people they should do about that?
Well, you let the Native Hawaiian decide first. See, Daryl, that's the whole issue. My grandfather never had no choice to melt in this pot. And that's why the people are crying out loud. You know that the Federal Act divides the Hawaiian people with the blood quantum? You got the less than 50% of 49ers yelling out loud, what about me? I Hawaiian. And the 50% said, yeah, tight weight on the waiting list.
Right.
That is bureaucracy. You know what I feel about? It's the fourth branch of government. The fourth branch of government is the administrative, the departments that run the department and give us all those bureaucracy and all those practices without policies or procedures in place that people can go through to really activate democracy.
Let me ask you, Senator, when you saw the level of anger, and do you worry about the way people from outside Hawaii are going to see that, and whether there'll be a kickback, or what kind of concerns do you have going forward on that?
Yeah, it is concerning because you know, I think a lot of people will see that as, oh, I guess they don't want, you know, they don't want any kind of recognition, and I think there are people that feel that way. But I hope that they won't take that as, okay, well, then we're not going to protect the benefits that they have then. You know, we're going to say, okay, fine, then we're not going to recognize that the United States does owe reparations to Hawaiians, and then all the Hawaiian benefits that are there can be taken away. But on the other hand, you know, I think it was an impressive, you know, outpouring of people. I mean, I was just amazed how many people showed. I think that hopefully the message will be loud and clear. You know, I would hope that maybe they would have something like the Maori, you know, where the Maori have spoken out so loud, you know, and clear. You know, they've got tracts of land back.
I'm going to ask you guys a quick question that I became fascinated with because I visited farms, and I visited up there, and you realize that in the historic times, it was a Garden of Eden out there. I mean, Makaha had loe all up and down the sides. Natural fresh water was flowing. The water got stolen like everywhere else. How big is it to get the water back? Can we get the water back to Waianae, and what would happen to that coastline if you got that?
Oh, it would make all the difference in the world. And Mohala Ikawai, which is a group that's been around for quite some time, that's been their goal. And they've been working with Border Water Supply to try to see if they can stop pumping one of the streams, I think in Makaha. But it might take a lawsuit. You know, it might take someone like Earth Justice coming in there like they did on Maui and forcing, because
To let go of the water.
to restore the in-stream flow standards.
Mike, you mentioned it, is how the restoration of Hawaiian people, how much of it depends on the water?
My brother, we was in Waianae Valley. And
I
now
only have
you-
about 30 seconds by the way.
Yeah,
so-
easy. Just blow up the auto pipes, let the water flow right back. Put them back inside the Hawaii. You know, it's not the family, it's not the people. You see, everybody else is coming and making decisions. You got to get the people involved. Government no can do it by themselves. The community no can. You got to everybody, private, government, and the community, all working together. And the people in the community needs to participate. You got to give them that participation.
And do you feel like hope is here?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot of positive things happening in the community. You know, we're seeing, you know, Sea Rider Productions is continuing to expand into digital media now, and we're getting on the map for that. You know, and Kahumana Farm, you know, is also expanding what they're doing with, you know, organic agriculture and too. So, you know, we have one of the last dairy, you know, naked cow dairy. So there's positive hope.
Mike, your chance. Do you feel hope about the coast?
No, we gotta hang on to hope. If you don't hang on to hope, there's nothing to hope for. So of course I hang on to hope. But then, are you pleased with what's going on? I'm not, because my kids cannot find jobs, man. They cannot find livable wages, not this median income. That's what we're basing our income on. And the families need to, that's the kind of hope you need.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, both of you. It's been a great discussion, a lot of fun. Next time on Insights, Democratic candidates for the State House District 42, Kapolei and Makakilo, will join us to talk about why they're the best for the job. Midway through the show, we'll switch and hear from the Hawaiian community about this year's first ever primary election for members of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. Ahui ho.